So welcome to Northern Powerhouses, our business success stories series of interviews where we discuss with local business leaders their backgrounds, their successes and their challenges and what's really driving them forwards. And today I'm delighted that we have with us Brodie Harkess, who's the managing partner at Brawl agency. So Brodie, firstly, thank you so much for your time. And if you'd like to introduce yourself and Brawl agency to the audience, what you do and how you help people, that would be wonderful.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chris. Thank you for having me. Yeah, like I said, my name's Brodie Harkess, and I'm one of the managing partners of Brawl here in Leeds. Brawl are, I guess, a multi-service agency. Essentially, we call ourselves a brand communications agency. So we do everything from strategy, creative, content creation, and many other things as well.
Wonderful, wonderful. And perhaps if we start telling us a little bit about your background, how you got into business and why this particular one.
Yeah, absolutely. Mine's a bit of an unusual story. So I went to university to do film and television. I came out of university not really knowing what to do. I'd done little bits of work experience in and around different TV and production companies. I spent a little bit of time working at ITV, probably about a year. Left there, wasn't quite for me. It wasn't really what I was into. And then I got back in touch with a production company that I actually did work experience with. And that was 18 years ago nearly, and I'm still there today, now the managing partner. So I started as a T-boy and now I'm the managing partner of the business. So yeah, a bit of an unusual one.
Wow, that must have been quite a journey. Just as you say, coming on and then working way all the way through that. Tell us a little bit more about, I guess, that journey. Brodie.
Yeah.
I mean,
It's a funny one. I think a lot of people who start out in business, particularly in this industry, want to, get a couple of years foundational experience and move on to a bigger opportunity or a bigger agency, bigger clients, etc., and kind of grow there. For me, it was more about wanting to kind of learn more and more and more. So, obviously starting out in a junior position, I was able to then kind of learn things that were a little bit, higher up, and then, I'd move up into that role, and I was able to kind of grow and grow and grow and become, I guess, a bit of a specialist in certain things. So, I fell into becoming a TV commercial producer. And that's, I guess, a bit of a niche specialism in its own. And then we kind of branched into doing a lot of kind of corporate communications. And then we kind of branched out into even, wider territories as well. And for me, I just never really fell out of love of it. They got to, get more promotions or get more pay rises or take on more responsibility. But it eventually got to a point where I actually shifted, I guess, from wanting to do the film and the video and the bright lights and the camera kind of thing, of more of being interested in the business side of things. And I guess that's probably where I made the point. I think, well, no, I want to stay here and I actually want to get involved as a business, become an agency owner, and actually, look at it from that side of view.
Well, no, it's absolutely fascinating. And I guess, thinking about myself, I started my first business as an employee and ultimately became a director owner in a perhaps not a completely similar way. But one thing I experienced, and I work with a lot of people that experience this, is not so much the knowledge and skills development that we need to grow through those different roles, but it's the identity change, if that makes sense, from team member to manager to director or partner to owner.
Yeah.
What were some of the highlights of that, or maybe some things you learned from those changes of how we had to think about business in general?
Well, I think it's a really interesting question. Actually, I feel I'm still kind of on that journey today. I mean, ultimately, I still hold a day job, if you like, within the organization, and so does my business partner as well. We're both very much hands-on involved in the business, and that's not to say, oh, this is our baby, we can't let it go, or trust anyone to do it. But we're still passionate about what we do. I think, for me, it's never really changed. I'm still a producer at heart, or a project manager at heart. So, moving into those more managerial roles or becoming a director, it's almost like you have to sometimes wear two hats, if you like, and being able to kind of flick between them at any given stage. And sometimes you have to talk to your team as a co-worker or as a colleague, and be part of the project that's going on. And sometimes you have to flip and go, actually, no, this is business owner talking today, and this is like strategical decisions that I want to make. And I think as long as you can be open with your team and your colleagues and even your clients, that you kind of have this kind of dual role to fulfill, then I think it works really well. But yeah, it's something that I think a lot of people probably struggle with. But I think as long as you don't make it a big deal and you actually embrace it, then it can be quite rewarding at the same time.
Yeah, I remember we worked with many years ago. I won't go into the details of the company, but the business was bought out by two of the senior guys, and the owner was his actually name was on the business, so I won't mention it. But the owner was quite a character, and I remember for 6 months when my colleague was coaching the new one of the guys became MD, the other became ops director. For 6 months, the MD wouldn't sit in the owner's chair in his office, so it was literally having a meeting on the same side of the other side of the desk, because it was still, that was, you never sat there. That was the boss's chair, if you like, and it was. I mean, it was very illogical, but understandable, if that makes sense. It was sort of it was big shoes to fill. But thinking sort of early days, when you were growing up, is this the sort of thing you foresaw yourself doing, or did you have other plans at that point?
Honestly, no. I mean, I think, as a kid at school, I probably wasn't the most academic person, and I think, I never imagined myself that I'd go to university. But I did go to university. I went not because I wanted a particular job. I just thought, well, film and TV sounds fun. And even when I came out, and even when I graduated, it was like, well, the idea of working in television or doing TV commercials sounds fun. There's something that, it'd be cool to tell people that's what you do. But actually, it's the novelty of that soon more often, than the desire to become a business owner, and be more interested in, growing a business is something that soon happened to me, but something that I would never have thought in my wildest dreams is something that I would have done or do today.
Well, amazing. So looking back over this whole period, what are some of the biggest issues you've had to overcome? And I'll perhaps widen that, both as a business, perhaps you individually, as you've developed all the way through.
Yeah, I mean, I think on a personal level, I think the biggest obstacle is probably imposter syndrome. We're still in the same building that we started when I was on my placement here. And, every morning when we come in and we open up the building, I still remember when I was a runner or a T-boy, opening up the blinds, opening up the shutters, putting the kettle on. And, all these years later, still doing the same thing, but being the owner of the business or the co-owner of the business. It's a strange kind of thing. And I think you need to kind of remind yourself every single day that, you are doing it. And clearly we are doing it. We're making money, we're employing people. So I think, that side of things is kind of interesting. I think from a business point of view, I think we've had quite a lot of significant challenges during the time that I've been here. And I think, I started out in probably 2006, 2007 time where, just before recession, businesses were booming. The work that we were doing here in this business before I was, co-owner was, really the top caliber. It was fantastic. And then all of a sudden a recession hit. And you'll remember that recession of kind of that time, a lot of businesses went under. And I think for us, one of the biggest challenges we found is that not only was there a recession, there was almost this change in technology where, what we did was a kind of black art or black magic art, if you like. And then all of a sudden everyone was buying cameras and everyone was, having access to edit suites and everyone was almost doing it themselves. And you had a lot of kind of one-man bands going out and kind of competing for the work they were going for. And then a lot of bigger agencies, and I guess kind of to where we are now as an agency, where we're offering all these services as well. So we kind of found that we were getting crushed from the bottom and crushed from the top. And that was a big thing for us where we had to think, right, we need to move away from being a production company and we need to become an agency. Yes, making content is still to this day, at the heart of what we do, but it's just one of many services that we do for our clients. And actually, it's still funny today. We've got clients who we just do content for, and they go, "Well, we didn't know that you did design, and that you did strategy, and that you did creative and copywriting." And then we've got clients that we do all of those other services for, and they go, "You guys do video and animation and films?" And we're like, "Yeah." So I guess it's a constant challenge for us to sell ourselves as an all-encompassing unit and not to get pigeonholed. But actually, in a way, it's kind of nice because then we've got variety across all of our clients. But I think ultimately the big challenge that we had, and I guess it's the elephant in the room, but it is COVID. We're certainly not unique there. Every single business had the horrific challenge of COVID. I think what was weird for us was we instantly had that thing of like, well, what are we going to do? Businesses just were not spending money. Everyone was pausing what they were doing. A big part of our business at that time was still content creation. So the ability to physically go out and create content for people was illegal. So that was a real challenge. But
Yeah.
what we found pulled us through in the interim, what kept us afloat was we soon realized within a few weeks that every single business needed to communicate to their teams about what was going on, in their business, what their plan was for COVID, how they were going to deal with COVID, coming back to work, staying away from work. So we actually found that, God, there was a real niche where we could be the people that could help be the communicators for all these companies. And we soon found that 2020 went from being oh shit, we could go under, to being actually we could really grow here. And I think that was probably our biggest challenge, but we certainly overcame it. And I think to be honest, and I hate to say it because I know so many businesses really struggled and people lost livelihoods and jobs, but I actually think it was the catalyst for us to project ourselves and grow. And I actually think we're now sat here in 2023 in a much stronger and better position. As an agency, I think we're a more creative and stronger agency, but then as a financial stability as well, I think we're in a much better place because of it. And I think it was the wake-up call that we needed.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. A couple of points there was the idea when you're saying earlier about clients not knowing that we did all these other things, and it's a constant battle because what we often find is a client is only interested in the one thing they want at that point, and although we tell them, they go yeah okay, but it's lost, and it's it's the consistent and persistent reminding them that there's other things. So I've never met a business that hasn't had a client say, "Oh, I wish I knew you did that because I've just got that from somebody else," and it's nuts. But your point, I think your point, it's great to see how well you've done, not just despite, but because of COVID, and I think it's okay to give ourselves a bit of a break, really, because there were some industries, there were many industries that were really badly affected, without a doubt. But even within those industries, there were individual organisations and people that chose to think of it differently and see it as an opportunity, and therefore made it an opportunity and come out of the other side bigger, or certainly as successful, and grown from there. And I think that's the entrepreneurial spirit that we need.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think Henry Ford said it best, whether you think you can or think you can't, you're right. And it goes from, but it means the brain goes from can we do it to how can we do it, and therefore it's not a question of we can or can't. It's just we are going to. It's what. So, and funnily enough, I remember in my first business in a previous recession, and again, we're taking a pleasure from it, but we were in a similar position where we were competing. We were that sort of growing business of, let's say, 15, 20 people at that point, but we were still competing with one-man bands, and the price difference was quite significant. But we survived the recession, and most of those guys didn't, and had to end up working for the people at the time. And it was a good thing to go through in many ways for the business. And as I say, we take no pleasure from other people's failures, but I think yourself and other people should take credit from taking what appeared to be an adverse situation and turn it into positive.
No, I think you're absolutely right. And I think it's looking for what your opportunity is there, isn't it? It's like we will succeed, but it's just a case of how we do it. And you mentioned price there as well. I think one of the things that we kind of carved out as an opportunity was, there was different rules across the world during COVID about, what people could and couldn't do. And one of the things that we were beginning to notice before COVID was that, even for us to make good profit and good money, we were significantly cheaper than American counterparts. So we actually found that we were able to, start off with a few American clients, and actually we became, quite on demand with American clients, and we actually started to build up a big network of American clients. When COVID hit, we actually found that we were able to, use, great solid kind of connections and subcontractors out in America, but still direct all the work, over Zoom. So we were going out and filming, and we'd literally have, people spinning a laptop around, and we were like directing content from our bedrooms during like the peak of lockdown. Wow. But we were using American crews, and then what we would then do is we just ship all the footage back here to the UK, and our employees, our team here, would be working on that or design content or anything like that. And we then soon found that actually that's probably our way of doing it. And that's probably our point where we started to kind of realize, well, actually, we can not only can we survive, but we can probably do quite well here. Just by kind of thinking, right, well, rather than kind of being bogged down into like, what can't we do here and what can't we, do in this country? It's like, well, what can we do in other places of the world? If we're stuck from home and location is no longer a thing that is anchoring us to what we do, then how do we take advantage of that? And that was one of the things that kind of propelled us, I guess.
Yes. No, it sounds amazing. I mean, the creative thinking behind making that happen must have been quite incredible. And again, we were talking before we started that the fact that you're an agency based in Leeds in Headingley, I think you said, and you've got, did you say more clients overseas than in the UK?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we've got, I think the majority of our work will come from States, and a lot, and the majority of it will be done here because it's either strategy or it's creative work or it's design work. But then the execution of the projects as well, we do a lot of physical work over in the States as well. So we're there quite often, and then we're able to bring the work that we do there back into our studios here as well. So it's, I guess, the States is feeding our studio, if you like. But we do still have some UK clients and some really good UK clients, big brand names, and we just love that. And I think a lot of people have always said to us, why have you got an office in Headingley? Like, that's like a really random place to have. And it's like, well, this is where the business started. The previous owners of the business who founded the business, back in the 80s, were from Leeds, and this is where they set up. And we've never really seen any need to leave the area. No matter where we based ourselves, we would have clients everywhere. So we're proud to be from Leeds. We think it's a city, it's a creative city. I think as in all the agencies are around here, all the studios are around here. The higher education facilities are around here, not just in Leeds, and in the north of England as well. We've seen no reason to leave here, really.
I mean, Leeds is quite a big creative hub, isn't it? And digital hub, I feel, and it seems to have a quite a large community of really great people doing great things.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree. And it's amazing how many people know each other from, past ventures. And you'll have people that have worked at different agencies together and moved on, or people that, have all worked at one company and they've gone and left and set up their own thing. But it doesn't really feel territorial. It doesn't feel, it feels competitive, but I think, everyone seems to be working together. And I think you'll find a lot of agencies have shared clients. And I think that's maybe one thing that we've really kind of honed in on is, when I first started out, it was always very territorial. You absolutely wouldn't talk to another agency. And actually, I think a lot of the most successful case studies we have with some of our clients is where we've had synergy with other agencies. And, some of these agencies might do some of what we do and we might do some of what they do. But ultimately, a lot of clients want to bring agencies together to get, the best of both worlds. And for us, it's one of those things of like, why would you like kind of make enemies with people? Why would you want to butt heads? And we actually find that, through partnerships with other agencies, we've actually been able to work on some really, really nice projects and grow some accounts really, by doing so. So yeah, it's for us, it's like, that's kind of something that we're really into, and, we're really keen to kind of, develop and grow here and abroad as well.
Brilliant. It's certainly something that we work with businesses a lot, and I've never met two businesses that directly overlap everything in the same way, and so there's always some opportunity, however small, potentially, and therefore that discussion and that cooperation is just way more valuable than, as you say, competition. Competition just is a lose-lose in general. In most cases. Absolutely fascinating. And I'm keen to know, actually, we did do a little bit of work in the States, I remember, in my first business. And one thing we were told was that Americans like to buy from Americans. Is that something you were told, and what's your experience of that been?
It's a mixed bag. I think, some people love the fact that they're working with an international company, and I think the novelty of working with someone with a funny accent. But I think there is always the elephant in the room of like, well, why would we not use an American agency when we're here in America, but America is such a big place. And, if you think like, if you're a company based in LA and you're, say, let's use an American agency and they're based in New York, it's still an astronomical distance, to travel. There's different time zones, different distances. And actually, really, when you think on how much extra it is just to bolt on to come to the UK or from the UK to come over, it's not really that much difference. But again, I guess it's the economies of scale. We are cheaper, not because we're offering a substandard level of service, but as a country, our rates are cheaper. So for them, it's like, well, they're able to get this service at a kind of a rate that stretches at dollars. But then also, I think the time difference really works. A lot of our clients are on Eastern time, so that's a 5-hour difference, and it actually really works great for them because we can have conversations at the end of our day, and then we can jump on whatever those tasks are first thing in the morning our time. And by lunchtime we finish whatever that is, and when they come into their office and they look at their emails at 6 a.m. and boom, it's there.
Brilliant.
So it really does work that way. But yeah, no, I've not really had too much kind of pushback from it, and actually, I think it's testament to us, and however we're doing it, it is working. We're growing clients across the states, from East Coast to West Coast, really, and in a multitude of different sectors as well. So yeah, no, it's certainly working, but I think it's not to sound cheesy, it's about relationships, and I think if you can forge good relationships with people, then you forge trust. And I think if you deliver good work and you deliver what you say you're going to do, and you're fun to work with, and you make it an experience along the way, then there's no reason why people wouldn't want to work with you again, regardless of where you're based.
100%. No, I just interested to get your view. I do remember, actually, funny enough, we did a lot of work in Texas because Texas is the main hub for power generation companies, electrical generation companies. And I remember a guy saying that Texans were like Yorkshire, and I came to know it. He said Texans were like Yorkshire people in terms of, in their own country, they're seen as the most trusted of people, if you like, or regional people. So I didn't know that. I didn't know that time, but I found that very interesting. But so
I think it's a very good point. I think it's about wearing your heart on your sleeve and being honest. I mean, I think it's all cliche. I think a lot of agencies say like, oh, we don't bullshit and we talk, straight up talk. And it's like, well, yeah, but if you actually do that, and we do that, and if you back it up, then people like dealing with honest people. Like if you're going to go and buy anything, outside of your work life, you want to go buy a car, you want just a straightforward, this is what I want, give me some advice, what do you think, can we do a good deal? And you then when you go to buy your next car, you're going to go there, but nobody wants the hard sell, the cheesy salesman, this genuine kind of approach. So yeah, I mean, I think like that Yorkshire approach, if you like, of being true and honest is kind of the way that it's worked for us.
Brilliant, absolutely brilliant. And looking back on what you've achieved so far, what would you say is some of the biggest learnings you've had about business in general?
I think the biggest learning about business is that I'd imagine that any businesses will experience busy times and quiet times, and businesses go in waves. And I think being able to see that and forecast it, but then understand how to conduct and behave yourself in both entities. So when you're really, really, really busy, it's very easy to say, well, I don't want to take on this project because this one's, more beneficial to us, or you might kind of take for granted how busy you are and not actually think about your kind of sales funnel. And then at the same time, I think if you ever, the wind drops and you have a bit of a quiet month, not to panic and start, thinking, right, well, let's try and, make money from this or make money from that. And I just think that's not a good strategy. I think being able to, I think the biggest learning for me is to be able to kind of really kind of look at the clients that you want to work with, understand what their challenges are, and then understand them as a business. Like, how do they work? Like, how do their budgets work? What is it that they need to achieve year on year? What percentage growth they're looking to achieve? And I think if you can kind of understand that, then I think for me, the biggest learning is that's how you look at it on an annual basis of trading. You can look at how your pool of clients, need to achieve certain things, and you can look at what budgets they've got to spend, and you can look at that on a year-to-year basis, rather than kind of operating in a kind of hand-to-mouth manner, which I think is kind of what a lot of small businesses will do in the early days. So I think that's probably my biggest learning. I think my other biggest learning is it's kind of taking this thing of like, is it good money? Is it good work? And are they good people to work with? And I think that's like a triangle of, you need to have two out of the three. You can have any two. And if you get three, that's great. But if you have one, you can't do it. So, you can do work that's brilliant money. And, it's fantastic portfolio work. They might not be the best people to work with, but look, if you can get great portfolio work and great money, then, just get over yourself and do it. But then like on the flip side of that, you might do something that's like terrible portfolio work that is just not interesting at all. But if it's good money and the people are great to work with, then again, being able to put your creative pride aside and say, well, actually, I'm going to put my financial hat on and actually, from a fulfillment point of view, I really love working with this company. Then, I think that's a big learning for us as well is, it's not all about show reel material. It's not all about like big bucks at the end of it. I think it's having that mixture of, deliverables or kind of tangible things that you want to be able to achieve to kind of make it fun.
That's really interesting, and I completely agree. I was literally talking with a client yesterday in general around sales, and I was just talking about the if you get into that sales mode of you've got to win, you've got to win at any cost, and even knowing going through the process that I always say a crappy client doesn't become a crappy prospect doesn't become a great client just because they buy from you.
Absolutely.
If a crappy prospect, will probably be a crappy client. So
I agree.
And as soon as I do that, I immediately visualize a particular totally. And going back to what you said about those three things. In general, my belief in learning is a crappy client often becomes a poor value client because they want so much and need so much. So even if the money appears to start in a good place, it often ends up in a poor place because of the amount of effort we have to do to service them.
Absolutely.
So you're probably aware we're a business coaching organisation. I'm just keen to know who the best coaches you've worked with, whether that's business, sport, or life in general, Brodie.
Yeah, I think I've got probably a lot of kind of, I say, people that have been coaches in my kind of career. And I think obviously like parents, my wife, I think obviously like friends, business partner, Martin Jones, my business partner here, he's probably been a kind of a big mentor in my shift from, wanting to be essentially a producer to becoming a business owner. And I think, his background is client services and sales and seeing, how he did things and how he was able to, go to a client and, sell them the world, but still deliver it at the same time and, make great money from them, but make them happy and actually elevate them, make them look good in their business and achieve things for them. And I think, realizing that was one thing that made me want to, make the shift from being maybe like an employee to a business owner. But I think, not to sound cheesy, I think one of the most important things business owners can do is almost like look at themselves to be a mentor. And I mean that in a way of like, look back at what you've done on a daily basis and almost analyze yourself, but not overanalyze yourself to say, okay, right, well, I did this situation or this happened. Like what did I do there that was really good? Did I handle that really well? Did I handle that badly? Did I overreact? Was I too soft? Was I too firm? Should I have stood my ground a little bit? Did I protect our integrity in the way that we acted? And I think because we work with so many different clients and so many different industries, and we've got so many different plates that we're spinning at the same time, it's really easy just to jump from one task to the next, one project to the next. But I think from a mentorship, I think like it's really important to self-mentor and to constantly analyze yourself. And I think if you can find like-minded people in your organization who do that as well, you can almost mentor each other. So yeah, no, I certainly say that. And then I think the previous owners of our business, they were the ones that gave me and Martin a chance and opportunity. And they certainly mentored us along the way, with advice, both being our boss at the time, and then when we bought the business, still to do it as well. So I think surrounding yourself with different people, and having the belief in yourself and trusting yourself to self mentor is important.
Wonderful. Yeah, I think self-awareness is a very important thing. I think because we can only find that from ourselves. Like when do we think, for instance, when are we most at our best in terms of doing work? Because it's different for everybody. When being conscious that maybe if today isn't the right day, perhaps I shouldn't not make it the right day. It's okay sometimes.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, if I'm not feeling it, it's probably for a reason, and that's okay.
Yeah, we all have those days.
Yeah, and it's okay. Unfortunately, entrepreneurial people I find are very driven. So there's an immediate conflict of no, I should be doing it, but sometimes if we're not at our best, we should, for the benefit of all, delay things till we are.
Yeah, completely agree.
So, are there any quotes or sayings that you're catching yourself using on a regular basis, Brodie? It's something I do.
Yeah, I mean, I think we probably end up, constantly using phrases or sayings or analogies in business, and particularly here at Brawl. I think one thing that kind of stands out that I've kind of repeated back to my team, and it's not for every occasion, but I remember my dad once said to me, it's easier to ask for forgiveness than it is to ask for permission, which was a really like weird thing to say. I was like, well, what the hell does that mean? And then when you actually think about it, it does make a lot of sense. And sometimes, in business, yes, you have to push forward and you have to be, keen and assertive in what you do. And it might be a case of like, going forward quicker than people plan and almost kind of, waiting for someone to pull you back and then you ask for forgiveness rather than permission. But I think as well, like on a developmental thing as well, like don't, put yourself forward and kind of push forward and, always, let people tell you to come back and then, challenge that there and then rather than constantly ask for somebody else's permission, because I think it's easy for people to say no. But I think if you push forward and you're clear on what you're trying to achieve and you believe in what you're trying to do, then that's one thing that's kind of stuck with me that kind of
Brilliant.
lives in the business today.
It reminds me of, I don't know if it's totally the same, but I think there's an element of permission, forgiveness, or permission from self. In other words, allowing ourselves to try stuff and go out. It allows us to go out personally onto a limb and take a risk. Because consistently with successful people I've spoken to, it's the willingness to accept, failure or a mistake in attaining success, if that makes sense. Whereas, so if I ask for permission, I'll probably of myself, should I do it? The answer might be no, it's a bit risky. But if we just say, yeah, let's just go for it, and then forgive ourselves if we get it wrong, that seems to be the way I find most successful people operate.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. And I think, if you are asking for permission, then you're obviously not, you're 100% confident that you will be able to execute it. Otherwise, you wouldn't be asking for permission or reassurance. And I think if you then go ahead and then you fail on that basis, then you can have, well, actually, I've proved myself right. I wasn't able to do that. Whereas I think exactly that, if you flip it on his head and say, do you know what, I'm just going to go ahead and do this. And I believe in myself. I've got a good team around me. We can do this thing, whatever it is. And then, like I said, if it doesn't work out for any reasons, you can look back at that objectively and think, okay, well, what were the failures? What did we do wrong? What do we do differently to grow for next time? I think it's a much better mindset. Not just as a business owner, but somebody working in an agency or in any role really. Yeah. I think it's something that I believe in strongly.
Yeah, no, it's. I found a Brad Chiggers, who's a very successful guy, and he told me many years ago, and it's always stuck with me, that he believes he's as successful as he is because he's made more mistakes than anybody else he knows, not despite. And it was that willingness to try, the willingness to accept failure and accept mistakes. And it's always stuck with me.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really good point. And I think like that's one of the things, I guess, from we talked about mentorship and the journey between being an employee and an owner. And I think that's one of the things that I actually enjoy is when I'm in the employee or team member hat wearing kind of time and I'm talking to the team, I actually enjoy like giving them examples or kind of stories of times that I have made mistakes so that they can kind of show that to them, so that they can understand, what I did wrong so they don't do it again. I remember really clearly once seeing a typo on television on a commercial that I produced that went out on air, and I was like, oh. How did I miss that? And it was one of those commercials that had hundreds of variants of it. It was one commercial that had like slightly different versions every time it went out, and it was wrong on every single version of it. No. And I guess like now when we're doing TV commercials here, it's there's a much more stringent system in place for people to check things, and actually it's a much more forgiving time as well, because this is back when you had to make Betamax tapes, and even send out VHSs to stations, and
Yeah,
you had to get it physically couriered from Leeds down to stations. So to fix things was almost impossible, whereas now it's all digital, and if anyone makes a mistake or anything is like that, or anything gets missed by a client, it can be fixed immediately. However, despite it being easy to do that, it has forced us to be, more stringent in making sure things are right before they go out the door, and involving clients in that sign-off approval process as well. So, it's nice to be able to kind of take learnings that you've had a proper battering from at the time, and encourage people in a more calming environment for, like, this is a mistake that I made previously, don't do that. But I think if you don't admit and you can't hold your hand up to say that you make mistakes, every day, everyone does. So I think any business owner who says it doesn't is talking shit. I think everyone makes mistakes, and I think it's your ability to learn from them and grow from them, and to make something off them, I think is what it's all about.
absolutely, absolutely. It makes me wonder whether or not that as an example of how things can work is. I would imagine a lot of the detail-oriented people will have spotted the mistake and probably therefore remember the advert more than if it hadn't been spelled correctly.
Well, luckily it was just a legal disclaimer at the very bottom of the screen. It was nothing like, sign up today and get 100% off. Oh no, I meant 10% off. It was nothing like that. But still in our world, it's pretty significant.
That would have been a bit challenging. I remember funny enough, I remember in the early days of sort of email marketing, and the highest open rate email we sent out in the first 3 years, and we probably beat it since then, but I think it was 27% open rate, which at the time was pretty good. And it was a test message, so its title was test. And it's like, we had all these fancy ones about, how to grow your business in 6 easy steps and stuff, but it was like the one that said test, because everyone had to go, what the hell's that? I better open it.
Well, that happens so often. I'm sure you get it as well. The amount of times that you get an email that says "Dear insert name," and you just think, "Oh no!" Like, somebody sent out this email campaign, and they've made a mistake, and it'll be the worst thing that's possibly happened to them. So anytime anything that happens, I always just email straight back and say, "Hey, look, just to let you know." You've made this mistake, and I'll make the effort to speak to them, hear them out what they've got to do, because
Brilliant.
ultimately, you don't want to hit somebody when they're down. You want to actually kind of try and engage them, and A, try and help them, but B, make the time for them, and try and bring them back up and elevate them. So yeah, I think we're all in it together, whatever agency or industry you work in, aren't we?
Absolutely, couldn't agree more. And Brodie, I'm keen to know what you've learned about yourself throughout your journey so far.
Yeah, I think one of the things I've learned about myself is that I'm passionate about the end result of what we do, and I'm very much I used to be about, sounds terrible saying, almost more bragging rights. So if this industry, you go, oh, I worked on this project, or I worked on this project, have you seen it? And it was a bit kind of egotistical, whereas actually now I'm not interested in that at all. I'm actually interested in what gives me fulfillment is working with good people, and we can work on projects that get a great end result, and then that leads to financial success within our agency and their company, and then it leads on to working on more projects together. So I think, like, for me, on a professional level, I guess that's kind of what I've learned about myself, is that's what kind of gives me fulfillment. I feel like one of the things I've definitely learned about myself on a thing that I need to improve on is being able to switch off. And I think any business owner will be guilty of this, is that it's really, really hard to switch off, particularly now when you're contactable anyway. Everyone's got their emails on their phone.
Yeah.
And I think it is hard to really kind of to do that, to switch off. And I think I've made more of an effort this year, probably to take more time away from the business, take more holidays with family, and try and get better at putting the phone down. I think that's one thing that I've kind of learned. But it comes from a good place. It comes from wanting to run a successful agency with a business partner. It comes from wanting to keep clients happy, or all employees in the job, and sustain a lifestyle that everyone's got. So I think there's good intentions behind it, but I think one thing that I've learned is definitely more more now than ever is trying to kind of create a work-life balance, and it's something that I still want to kind of work on and develop more, but it's something that over the last kind of year I've really been kind of pushing to develop. That's something that I've learned myself that really need to kind of do more of.
Yeah, it's a common trait in many people, and it is part of that sort of growth journey, I believe, because ultimately, you know, our job needs to become purely leading a great team, and you know, and move it, and that's the often a challenge, especially if we love what we do, is you know, because the team, as a team grows, it needs successful leadership, or recruit somebody that can lead on our behalf.
Yeah,
if that makes sense.
absolutely.
But which is in itself an ego challenge in many ways. You mentioned ego earlier.
Yeah, it's not an easy challenge, is it? But I mean, I think we're really lucky here at Brawl. We've got, you know, an absolutely fantastic team. Excuse me, both, you know, in our full-time employees that work here, and, you know, and some of the subcontractors that we use as well. And we've got great people, and, you know,
Brilliant.
we only like to work with good people, I guess. And I think, you know, it's people that you can trust, people that you can inspire to want to grow and want to lead. And I think we're really fortunate in the team that we've got here. So yeah.
Wonderful. So looking forward, what does the future look like for you guys, and what are the challenges you face, if any?
So I think for us, obviously, growth is key. You know, I think any business who says that they don't want growth, you know, would be lying. I think, you know, a lot of businesses may want to, you know, tread water. One of our values is never stand still. So I think for us, that's very much against the grain of what we do. We want to grow. One of the things that we're really keen to do is get under the skin of more of our clients. You know, some of our biggest clients that we have is we've been able to get under the skin of those clients and really understand, you know, how their businesses work, you know, what their marketing strategies are, how they work in one territory versus how they work in another territory. You know, is it a large company that owns several companies? You know, what are opportunities there? So, you know, like I said, our biggest clients, we've been able to do that. And I think for me, that's probably, you know, this year and next year will be kind of growing more client relationships, not necessarily doing more work with clients, but doing, you know, wider spread work, different types of projects with a wider range of people within those organizations. And I guess like spreading the net. So I think that's kind of what the next year ahead looks like in terms of kind of our desires and growth. I think, you know, we want to continue to build our client base across the globe and continue to strive in the States. And, you know, I think our challenges will be the economy. You know, I think, you know, ultimately, you know, it's a volatile economy still, and, you know, still recovering from COVID, and, you know, threats of recession and then not recession. And then I think it is a bit all over the place. And I think one of the challenges we'll find is that, you know, a lot of clients will say, okay, we've had a budget freeze, we've got no money to spend. And then all of a sudden the next month it'll be, actually, we've got loads of budget spend, we've got to spend it quick before the end of the month kind of thing. So I think our challenges is, you know, not just us strategizing what we want to do as a business and where we see our income, revenues and streams coming from, is understanding how our clients, you know, need to manage their budgets and what they need to achieve. And I think that's probably one of the biggest challenges for us, is really kind of getting under the skin of that. And finding out what they're trying to achieve, you know, how much market share growth they want, you know, what their competitors are doing that they need to kind of compete against. And I think, and ultimately the biggest challenge there is time. And I think, you know, ultimately we're all in the thick of it, running a business and doing projects, but I think it's that ability to take time and step back on a strategic level and look at what clients are needing. And I think that's the biggest challenge for any agency, is to, you know, carve out that time to really kind of make sure you understand clients' needs and desires, and then structure your I guess your sales approach around that.
That makes sense. Yeah, that makes absolute sense. And I'm keen to know what you say to anyone that was thinking of going into business right now, Brodie.
Yeah, I mean, I think anyone going into business, it's going to be a bit of a minefield. I think, you know, in hindsight, I mean, I never started out intending to own a business one day. But one of the things that I always look back at and think that serves me well is, you know, having part-time jobs as a younger kid. I think, you know, that age between 16 and 18 is so important to, you know, obviously focus on your studies or whatever you're doing there, but having a part-time job is so essential to be able to learn people skills. You know, whether you work in a bar or a restaurant or a cafe or a shop, you know, being able to, you know what it feels like to be busy, know what it feels like to be quiet, know what it feels like to have stress, to deal with different types of customers, you know, to deal with people that might work for you that are great, people who might work for you are terrible. And I think, you know, being able to have that kind of core skill before you get into a business is really, really important, because I think a lot of people come out of school or, you know, higher education and go, right, I'm going to start a business, but they've not had any of that kind of stuff, as a foundational thing. And then I think the other thing as well is like work for a business in the sector of business that you aim to set up in. So I think, if you're going to start up an agency, how could you not spend time working in an agency? It's really important to go in and see, do you know what works really well is this, this, and this. And do you know what, this agency that I'm working for now are doing really badly is this, that, and the other. And I'm going to make sure that we don't do that. What do I like about this agency? What do I not like about it? If I had my own agency, what would I do differently? So I think investing in yourself in terms of, part-time jobs in any sector, any industry to gain kind of like adult working skills is essential. It's all great saying that you're efficient in, different bits of software or whatever, but if you don't know how to deal with conflict or drama or office politics or anything, then you're going to get left behind. But then I think, if you're going to go into a business, whatever it is, you should spend time. It doesn't have to be a long time. It might be a year, it might be 18 months, working for somebody to get a free education of what's good and what's bad and learn from their mistakes and successes.
100%. It's 100%. I know Brad, our founder, talked about when he was a young man, he qualified as an accountant, but then he spent the next 4 years working in different roles in different businesses. So because he always wanted to be an entrepreneur, he had a sales job, then he had a marketing job, then he had an operations job. And why wouldn't you get paid to learn? It's a great point. Get paid for your training. It's absolutely fantastic. I think this is the first time I've heard someone else talk about that, which is fascinating. Actually, why wouldn't you?
Well, it's a no-brainer when you think about it. It's it's something that why would you not do it? Everyone, at a young age, you want your independence, you want to earn your own money. And as a business owner, you want your business to be a success, don't you? You don't want to fail. You don't want to struggle. You don't want to be in a situation where something's going wrong and you don't know what to do, or you've not got any experience, or you've not got anyone to lean on, or any situations or experiences to lean on to think, how did that work or how did that not work? So I think, it's just such an obvious thing to do, which I'd highly recommend that anyone does.
Brilliant. And finally, what would be the best advice you give an 18-year-old you if you could go back in time and do so?
I think it would probably be, to try and take a step back and think about what it is you actually want in a career, because I think, if people didn't have to work, a lot of people wouldn't work. And if you were financially free, you'd probably do projects out of passion, but you wouldn't have to work all the time. And I think it's like, try and think about what it is that you really kind of want to do, what's going to satisfy you, what's going to give you fulfillment, and kind of try and focus, what you would do around that. I think, you ultimately spend 30, 40 years working in a career to enjoy a short retirement. And I think, I probably just like ran out the gate and didn't really think about what it was that I wanted to do, and maybe wasted a couple of years not really kind of like with much of a plan or direction, just kind of floating around. Now, it has, in turn worked out, and, got to a position that I do want to be. But I think if I was to give advice to myself, I think those are the things I probably do differently is have a bit more of a think about what's my kind of end goal, if you like, what would I like to achieve? And I think, it's probably what I'd say to an 18-year-old as well is, try and set yourself some short-term, mid-term and long-term goals. What do you want to achieve in the first couple of years? If you're 18, what do you want to achieve by the time you're 21? Where do you want to be when you're 30? And then I think like, from 30 onwards, it's like, okay, well, what's your exit strategy? And that might seem a bit extreme at 30 years old, what's your exit strategy? But it's not, because if you want to, be in a position where you might be in retirement by 55, then, 25 years is, it is not a huge amount of time in terms of being able to think, okay, well, if I'm going to run a business, I might spend 5 years growing it and getting it off the ground. Then I might spend 10 years, really kind of like reaping the rewards of having that business. But then it might take 5 years to think of, okay, well, how do I then find the next generation of people to take over? And then what's my exit strategy? And then before you know it, you kind of got to an age where you think, well, actually, I need to be thinking about this and planning it. So as crazy as it sounds and almost as depressing as it sounds, I'd certainly say to an 18-year-old is to make sure that you still, have long-term, mid-term and short-term, and don't just focus on the short-term.
Brilliant. No, I mean, I think Stephen Covey said that, one of his 7 habits of highly effective people is start with the end in mind. And so if you don't know what the exit is, then if you don't know what it looks like when it's finished, we don't know whether this decision is the right one or the wrong one. We need to know where we're going. So I think it's absolutely key. And the great thing about doing it I find, and I do this with lots of business owners, and it never fails to for them to see that actually, if they chose it to be the case, the potential exit point that they want to give them everything they need is a lot closer than they thought it was going to be. And you know, and I think that's an important thing to do, because a lot of people, you know, we're pre-programmed to talk about, you know, retirement traditionally at 60, 65, 67, what it is. But then as a business owner, maybe I'll bring that back to 60 or 55 or 50. But if retiring is purely, Brad describes retiring as rehiring yourself as your own money manager or investment manager, then that could be any age.
But I think retirement, you know, doesn't, you know, you part-time retirement or being able to work in a different work-life balance. I think, you know, again, if I was to kind of think, you know, differently, if I was to do it again, I maybe think, hey, you know what, when I'm 30 and I might, you know, get married and have kids, you know, do I want to be able to be in a position where I can take them to school in the morning or pick them up pick them afterwards? And what would that mean? That would mean that actually my working days would become shorter. And I'd surround myself with people that would enable me to do that. And again, that's something that I'm still working on now. I'm trying to kind of shorten my days, not because I don't want to be being here, but I'm trying to kind of, you know, control that work-life balance. And it might be that when I get even older, that I actually go, do you know what, I want to be in my next goal might be that in 10 years time, I want to be in a position where I can work part-time. And that's not because I want to work part-time, or I've not got the desire or the passion or the enthusiasm to keep growing the business forward. But it's just that it's then the reward of, you know, you put in the graft and you put in the time, and that's the reward. So I think, you know, I think as a young person, being able to think strategically about trying to achieve those small marginal gain milestones is something that I would definitely recommend.
100%, and it's a really strange thing, because I often say to business people, well, why did you start a business? Well, so I could have freedom and well, have it now then, because because the other thing I often say to people is ultimately, you know, running a business means, being a business owner means ultimately the book stops with us. You know, ultimately we're the last point. So that's the sort of challenging side. The good thing is we choose how it can be. Because it's our business, we don't have to run our business in the same way as anybody else. The hours we work, the way we work, the ethos in the company, in the business. And so, if I want to work 6 hours a day rather than 8, well, that's my choice. As long as I'm achieving my goals, and I think it's really important. And we really can do that at any point, even from starting the business. Although, as I'm sure you know, those early days it's probably unlikely.
Yeah, easier said than done on the first few years. Yeah, but I know what you mean. Yeah,
but yeah, brilliant. Well, Brodie, thank you so much. That's really been fascinating, and it's great again to see a business in our local area doing so well, not just locally but internationally. And it'd be great maybe to swing by in another 6 to 12 months and just see what the next phase of development is going for you guys.
Absolutely, yeah. It's been a pleasure speaking to you, Chris. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you. And if for anyone watching that'd like to contact you or the agency, what would be the best way to do so?
Yeah, I mean, simplest would be just drop us an email. So it's hello@brawlagency.com, or follow us on LinkedIn, and you know, we'll get in touch that way.
Brilliant. Once again, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you very much. Thank you.